The Declaration of Human Rights patterned itself after two documents that you probably know well. One of them is the Declaration of Independence, which we looked at a little bit there. Oh, I see McKenna joined us. Hi, McKenna. And
Hey.
the other document is the Bill of Rights, which we're not looking at directly. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. I'm sure you've been exposed to that a little bit. But in any case, um, I'll refer to that a number of times when we go through these articles. This Declaration of Human Rights has 23, I think it's 23 different articles. And I just want to read the preamble because the preamble really tells you the purpose of this. It says, whereas the recognition of the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, peace in the world. And you see that inalienable rights. We talked about that last time a little bit. And here you see freedom and justice, to the concepts that we've discussed ourselves, whereas disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts. Of course, this is right after World War II and all of the horrors of the Nazi regime and the persecution of the Jews and others. So that's the barbarous acts that they're actually referring to, which have outraged the conscience of mankind. And when you're talking about conscience, you're really talking about morality, the idea of what's right and what's wrong, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear and want, as has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. And then I'm just going to skip down here to the end. The General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, um, to the end that every individual and organ of society, keeping the Declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms. And that's essentially one of the reasons why I include this declaration in this class about morality, because the world decided that this document is basically proclaims and details the different human rights that people have, and that this document should be taught all over the world. So that's why it's here. Here's Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Of course, that echoes the Declaration of Independence, which we looked at last time. They are endowed, and there's that word endowed, which was also used in the Declaration of Independence, with reason and conscience. Again, conscience refers to morality, and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Brotherhood, of course, was the word at the time. Today we might use the word humankind, but brotherhood was the word that was used at that time. So I ask you, think about this Article 1. Do you agree that that should be, I'll write the question here. Do you agree that this is a basic human right? Can you justify it as a human right in reference to any of the other theories besides natural rights theory?
Uh,
Hi,
I can definitely
Kelly's
agree
with us.
that
Yes.
the freedom and equality and dignity rights I do agree that is a basic human right. And what I think I could use to help justify that is in virtue ethics, where the morality is that you're supposed to treat everyone equally and fairly. So I think maybe virtue ethics could be used to justify that sort of thing.
What would egoism ethics say about it? And we're not limited to Parker answering this question. I was just throwing that out. What would egoism say about it? Anybody can answer. Parker, you can answer if you like. Hmm.
They probably not agree because they are like looking out for the best for them, so they don't really care how they treat other people.
Very tricky. That's right. Egoism ethics is very tricky there. But you can see in Article 1, pretty broad statement about equality. And the equality is in dignity and rights. Remember when we talked on Monday about equality, it was political equality that I emphasized. But here, it's both political and moral. Dignity is morality. It's both moral and political rights that are being put forward here. Okay, so that's Article 1. And this is basically, this question here, basically the question I'm going to ask for each of these different articles, look through them. So let's look at Article 2. Oh, let me move it down so it's all on the same page. Okay. Article 2. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, that's legal, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or any other limitation of sovereignty. So everyone's entitled to these rights and freedoms, the ones set forth in this declaration, which we'll be looking at, regardless of whether you live in a country that's established like the United States, or a territory, or a province of some other country, or even an area that's a protectorate, not quite self-governing. Everybody's entitled to these rights. So I asked this question: should this be a basic human right? Should all human beings, regardless of where they live, and regardless of their background, and regardless of their political persuasion, should all human beings have these rights? Might sound like a non-question too, and your answer in your head might be, of course they should. I mean, what's the point of having human rights if they don't apply to all human beings? That might be what you've thought. Maybe you thought something else. Certainly, as Parker said before, virtue ethics would sort of demand that. But I think Kantian ethics as well, which says that other people should be treated as ends in themselves and not means to an end. And therefore, respect, dignity, and respect are two things that are basic in Kantian ethics. And of course, these are natural right ethics, so there's no reason to repeat that. But these guys, utilitarian ethics, greatest good for the greatest number. I mean, certainly people should have freedom, but when it comes to a decision in a circumstance, it's that principle of greatest good for the greatest number that's going to rule whether it takes away someone's freedom or takes away someone else's dignity or not. Greatest good for the greatest number is really going to apply. Similarly, with egoism ethics, as McKenna noted, you're not necessarily going to put the freedom and dignity of other people before your own. So I can see that. Okay, so Article 1, Article 2, pretty straightforward. I don't think there's can be much disagreement about those articles. Look at this one, Article 3. Life, liberty, and security of person. Of course, for John Locke, that was life, liberty, and property, as we discussed last time. And for the Declaration of Independence, it was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But here, in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's life, liberty, and the security of person. Any reaction to that change?
At least for me, not really. I still very much agree on that. You know, everyone has right to life, liberty, and their security or their safety as a person. And let's see, I'm trying to think of what other ethics besides virtue ethics would require this. I know virtue would for sure. Um,
One of the things, when we talked about Kant, I did not go into detail about his understanding of freedom itself because he put forth the duty ethics, right? Kantian duty ethics. But Kant was very focused on freedom because he lived in a situation where there was an absolute ruler and Frederick the Great, and people did not have public freedom. And so Kant was really focused on the fact that people needed to have at least private freedom in order to flourish and survive. So I would personally, I would think that Kantian duty ethics would certainly put forth the notion that people have the rights to life, liberty, and security. But you're right, it's a stretch. And again, for these two ethical approaches, there are a lot of questions here. And when we talked about saving that person who was drowning, one's life is not easily given up even to save the life of another. So there you have it. But this is not a very controversial article. Once again, some of the articles we're going to encounter will be a little bit more controversial. And the other thing I want to point out is this really does come directly from Locke and Jefferson. When you can see that life, liberty, and the security of person. Okay, it's not property and it's not pursuit of happiness, but certainly the fact that these three natural rights are named as human rights, you can see hopefully a direct line from the reasoning of Locke, the reasoning of Jefferson, founding fathers, and this document here. The document that the world has agreed upon as putting forth the human rights. This document defines human rights. No matter where you are in any context, if you're talking about human rights, you're talking about these are the rights, these are the human rights that the world has agreed upon as human rights. You may think there are others in addition to these. However, these are the ones, and there's more to come, that the world has agreed